Hi everyone, my name's Haley and I'm an educator for San Diego Audubon Society, where we study birds, other wildlife, and their habitats. I'm joining you today from Otay Valley Regional Park, located right here in Chula Vista, California. If you've never been here before, the park is actually super close to your school and it includes 11 miles full of beautiful trails and open spaces that are home to some really interesting plants and animals. Over the next 3 weeks, I'll be joining you from Otay Valley Regional Park to introduce you to some of the wildlife in our community. This week, we'll be learning all about birds. From common birds you might see in your backyard to raptors or faster moving birds you might see flying high up in the sky. Next week, we'll be learning about native plants and pollinators. And week 3, we'll be learning about water quality and the Otay River. So let's get started with this week's lesson, all about birds. Make sure you have your worksheet and a pencil so that you can follow along. Birds come in a variety of shapes and sizes. Some birds are small and brightly colored to attract a mate, and other birds are large and more camouflaged to blend in with their surroundings. Let's take a minute to learn about the anatomy, or the different parts that birds have in order to help them survive.
We've all seen them, but when we really think about them, what makes a bird a bird? Birds have special anatomy or body parts that make them different from other types of animals. On your worksheet, I want you to list 2 special body parts that make birds unique. Birds have special adaptations that help them survive. An adaptation is a body part that helps an animal survive in its specific habitat. One of the most common adaptations of birds is that they are covered in feathers. Feathers can be soft and downy to keep birds warm, or they can be stiff and strong to help them fly. Some feathers help a bird camouflage or blend into its environment, while other feathers are bright and bold to help attract a mate. Another special adaptation of birds is that they have beaks. Beaks help birds eat, and the way a bird's beak looks tells us a lot about the kind of food it eats. Some birds have long curved beaks for digging in the dirt to find insects. Hummingbirds have long thin beaks that act like straws to suck nectar out of flowers. Other birds have hard beaks for crushing seeds and berries, like a woodpecker with a pointed beak that hammers into trees to dig out insects hiding inside. Another adaptation of birds is that they have unique feet for their environment. They come in all different shapes and sizes. Some of them are long and thin to navigate through the mud, others are sharp and strong to hold onto their prey, and some even have feet that act like paddles to help them swim around.
Now that you have the opportunity to learn about some of the anatomy and adaptations of birds, let's get creative by designing our own bird species. On your worksheet, you'll notice this section where you can create your own bird. You get to decide what size it'll be, what color, what shape, and what adaptations it needs in order to survive. You can imagine that it lives here in the Otay Valley or somewhere completely different. It's totally up to you. Then we're going to come back together and learn about a special group of birds. Here in the Otay River Valley, there are barn owls, great horned owls, and these super cool burrowing owls. To learn more about owl anatomy, let's turn now to the experts at National Audubon and Audubon, Pennsylvania, with their great horned owl animal ambassador.
I'm Christine with the National Audubon Society, and today we're going to learn all about owls with our expert, Carrie Barron, who's with Audubon, Pennsylvania. So we actually have 2 amazing owls with us today. Could you tell us a little bit about them?
Sure. It sounds like Odin's telling us a little bit about himself. This is Odin. He's a great horned owl, and he is a full-grown owl. This is him at his full size. He lives at the John James Audubon Center, and he is non-releasable. So he can't live in the wild, and his story is that someone took him out of his nest when he was a baby and raised them for 2 years to be a falconry bird. After that time, they didn't want him anymore, but he was imprinted, meaning he'd been too used to being handled by humans and around humans that he can't be released into the wild. So there's nothing physically wrong with him. He is amazing at flying. He has a huge enclosure back at our center, and so he's just a great example of what a amazing bird of prey looks like.
Owls are one of the top predators. So what makes them such amazing hunters?
So they have a lot of the same characteristics of any bird of prey. So things, whether it's a hawk or a vulture or an eagle, they have sharp beaks and razor sharp talons. And so those are very common in any bird of prey. In fact, if we want to look at their talons right now, this is a great horned owl foot.
These are very sharp.
They're very sharp. This is what's going to be able to come down out of the sky and grab their prey and then take it usually up into a tree, sometimes stay there on the ground. But as you can see, they kind of have 3 toes or talons in the front and 1 in the back. And this makes it very effective for grabbing their prey.
Now it's your turn to test your knowledge about owl anatomy. On the back of your worksheet, you'll notice a picture of a barn owl. Go ahead and fill in the boxes with the anatomical parts or the body parts listed in the word box above. It's okay if you're not sure about them all, just do your best and we'll go over it together as a class. Great job figuring out the different anatomical parts of your owl. Let's go over some of these adaptations that make them such special birds. Eyes. Owls have great eyesight. But as you remember, they're nocturnal, so that means they hunt during the evening. This also means that they don't rely just on their eyesight, but also on their hearing. Owls have very different ears than us. On either side of their head, they have small ear holes. Now one is a little bit higher than the other, and that helps them to determine which direction a sound is coming from. Another special adaptation is their neck. You may have heard that owls can rotate their heads all the way 360 degrees, but that's actually not true. They can rotate it 270 degrees around, and that's way further than we can do, and it really helps them to look around from side to side. Owls also have strong legs to help hold their bodies upright in trees. If you look really closely, you'll see that they have talons on the bottom of their toes, and these are used for grabbing onto their prey so they can pick things up without even having to fully land. Another special adaptation of owls are wings and feathers. All owls have wings and feathers, but they come in different sizes and colors. This owl's feathers help them blend in with trees and leaves in their habitat, but owls that live in different places are going to have different feathers to help them blend in there. The next portion of our program, we'll be hitting our hands dirty as we participate in an owl pellet dissection.
An owl pellet is all of the parts of an animal that an owl can't digest, such as fur, bones, teeth, and nails. So let's learn a little bit more about owl pellets and what we might be able to find in them from National Audubon in Audubon, Pennsylvania.
Why do owls make pellets?
Sure. Well, so owls, like this long-eared owl I have right here, eat other animals. And so they can eat a wide range of animals such as squirrels, things that are smaller like mice, they eat snakes and other birds. And when they eat them, they can't digest everything. They can only digest the meat inside of the body. And so what ends up happening is the fur and the bones or whatever they can't digest actually comes out in something called an owl pellet.
So it's like barf, basically.
It's basically owl barf,
Okay.
yes. And don't worry about it because we've actually sanitized this owl barf, so you can totally touch it. This came out of our great horned owl. So this is a pellet the size that a larger bird, larger than this long-eared owl would have. And this is a pellet that something small like our screech owl, Scooter, is going to come out of its mouth. So you can see there's a difference in size based on the size of the owl.
Yeah.
They look different.
Yeah.
And that's just
because
white. Yeah. And this one's a little bit darker. It's based on the color mouse that they ate. You ready to dig in and see what
I'm so ready. So we just use our hands?
Yeah, it's easy. Cool. It's easiest just to pull them apart. And so I usually just dig in there.
All right.
And
I feel like I'm about to dine on
looks delicious, doesn't it?
Yeah.
First thing I do is kind of open it and just kind of spread the remnants on the.
I see bones.
Right? I know. It's very quickly that you'll start to see bones. You know, an owl this size or Odin might eat 4 mice in one night. So you might have multiple skeletons in one pellet.
Okay.
So it wouldn't just be one complete skeleton.
How often do they make these pellets?
They regurgitate once a day. You just never know when it happens. It's usually about 10 hours or so after they eat. But every morning we go in and we find these, and then we use them in classrooms.
I hope you're excited because we're about ready for our owl pellet dissection. Each of you will get your very own owl pellet. Don't worry, they've been sanitized, so they're totally safe for us to touch. But we'll also be giving you some forceps so you can kind of pick through the different parts. You'll have a little tray at your desk that you can use to hold the different bones, teeth, and fur that you might find inside the pellet. After your owl pellet dissection, you'll still have one more activity about birds. You'll have some time to go out onto your school campus and take a look around for different types of birds. Hopefully, you'll see lots of different species and be able to learn more about how to identify them based on the different types of sounds that they make. So join me soon for our owl pellet dissection, and I hope you've enjoyed your time learning all about birds with San Diego Audubon.